The conference room smelled like fear disguised as expensive cologne. Truman Cobb stood at the floor-to-ceiling window on the 47th floor, hands clasped behind his back, watching the city he'd once fled sprawl beneath him like a kingdom waiting to kneel. The late afternoon sun cast his reflection across the glass. Sharp suit, sharper jaw, eyes that had learned to hide everything except ambition. Below, the streets teemed with people who had no idea that their jobs, their homes, their entire economic ecosystem now answered to a ghost. A ghost who'd returned with a ledger. Behind him, the heavy oak door opened. Footsteps. Hesitant. Exactly as he'd expected. Mr. Cobb. His assistant's voice was professionally neutral. They're here. Truman didn't turn. All of them. Yes, sir. The Stark family, the Hockleys, and the Sullivans. They're in the waiting area. Security said Mr. Dominic Stark tried to bring his lawyer. A smile ghosted across Truman's lips. Did you tell him what I told you to say? That this meeting is off the record. That legal counsel would only complicate matters that could be resolved quietly. She paused. He wasn't happy, but he complied. Good. Truman turned from the window. Make them wait another 20 minutes. Offer them water. Nothing else. She nodded and retreated, the door clicking shut with the finality of a vault. 20 minutes. Long enough for them to sweat. Long enough for them to wonder why the new CEO of Cobb Industries, the corporation that had swallowed half the city's businesses in 18 months, had summoned them specifically. Long enough for the anxiety to ferment into the kind of dread that made people careless with their words. Hey there, everyone. I'm so glad you're here for this story. It's a wild ride about revenge, power, second chances, and discovering that sometimes the real monsters aren't the ones who hurt you, they're the ones who taught them how. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I love knowing where this story is reaching. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Seriously, it helps me keep creating these stories for you, and trust me, you won't want to miss where this one goes. Are you subscribed yet? If not, do it now. I'll wait. Okay, let's get back to it. Truman walked to the head of the table, letting his fingers trail across the polished surface. 16 chairs. Imported leather. A table that cost more than his childhood home. His childhood home, if you could call it that. A 2-room apartment with walls so thin he'd memorized the arguments of every neighbor. A kitchen where dinner was a negotiation between hunger and what little his mother could stretch from her 2 jobs. A bathroom where the mirror had a crack running through it, splitting his reflection into jagged pieces. He'd hated that mirror. He'd hated a lot of things. The door opened again. This time, he'd summoned them. They filed in like defendants approaching the bench. Dominic Stark first, silver-haired, 6 feet of self-importance poured into a suit that probably cost 5 figures. His son Andrew followed, looking softer than Truman remembered, his athletic frame gone slightly to seed, his eyes darting around the room like he was searching for exits. Then Cameron Hockley, whose family used to own half the real estate in town. Cameron had always been the cruel one, the one who'd perfected the art of humiliation. He looked thinner now, worry etched into the lines around his mouth. His father Nathan came behind him, stone-faced, but Truman could see the tension in his shoulders. Finally, Richard Sullivan and his mother. His father had died 2 years ago, a detail Truman knew because he'd sent flowers to the funeral. Anonymously. A private joke. They stood uncertainly until Truman gestured to the chairs. Sit. It wasn't a request. They sat. Truman remained standing, letting the silence stretch. Watching them. Andrew shifted in his seat. Cameron's jaw clenched. Dominic Stark leaned back, trying to project confidence, but his fingers drummed once against the armrest before he stilled them. Tell. I suppose you're wondering why I asked you here, Truman said finally. Mr. Cobb, Dominic started, his voice that practiced blend of authority and charm that rich men used like a weapon. We're certainly grateful for the opportunity to meet. Your company has made quite an impact on our community. We were hoping I'd restructure your debt? Truman interrupted. Hoping I'd renew the contracts I've allowed to lapse? Hoping I'd extend the loan deadlines that are currently strangling your businesses. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. We understand there are financial considerations, Nathan Hockley cut in, his tone more measured. But our families have deep roots in this city. We've contributed to its growth for generations. Surely there's room for negotiation. 4. Mutual benefit. Truman walked slowly around the table. They tracked him like prey watching a predator circle. Mutual benefit, he repeated. Interesting phrase. Tell me, Mr. Hockley, do you believe in karma? Nathan's brow furrowed. I'm not sure I understand the relevance. Do you believe, Truman continued, stopping behind Andrew's chair, that the things we do, the cruelties we inflict, the people we destroy, do you believe those things come back to us? Andrew's shoulders tensed. Truman could see the boy's pulse jumping in his neck. Mr. Cobb, Dominic tried again, if there's been some misunderstanding, some way our families have offended. 15 years ago, Truman said quietly, there was a boy in this city. Poor kid. Wore the same 3 shirts to school in rotation. Shoes held together with duct tape. Father dead. Mother working herself to death. He paused. Do any of you remember him? The silence was absolute. Truman leaned forward, placing both hands on the table, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Let me be more specific. Do you remember the boy you destroyed? Andrew's face had gone white. Cameron's eyes widened, and for the first time, Truman saw recognition dawn, and with it, horror. That's not, Andrew started. Possible. Truman finished. He straightened, and when he smiled, it was the smile of a man who'd waited 15 years to watch the people who'd broken him finally understand what it meant to be powerless. Let me introduce myself properly. My name is Truman Cobb, but you used to call me something else. He paused. You called me trash. The word landed like a bomb. Richard Sullivan's mother gasped. Dominic Stark's face went rigid. Cameron Hockley stood up so fast his chair scraped back. That's impossible, Cameron breathed. He was. Nobody. Truman offered. Nothing. A poor piece of garbage you used to shove into lockers? The kid you tripped in the cafeteria so his food tray went flying? The one you filmed having a panic attack in the bathroom and posted online for the whole school to mock? Andrew's hands were shaking. Truman, listen. Mr. Cobb *, Truman corrected, his voice like a blade. You don't get to use my first name. You lost that right when you held me down while your friends went through my backpack looking for something to steal, and settled for destroying my mother's birthday card because I had nothing worth taking. The memories were acid in his throat, but his voice remained steady, controlled. He practiced this. Jesus Christ, Nathan Hockley whispered. You're him. I'm him, Truman confirmed. The boy you taught your son to torture. The boy whose mother cleaned your office buildings at night, the same buildings I now own. The boy you all agreed wasn't worth the air he breathed. Dominic Stark found his voice. Now see here, if you think you can use some childhood grudge to... Grudge. Truman laughed, and it was a hollow sound. Mr. Stark, this isn't a grudge. A grudge is petty. This. He gestured around the room, encompassing the building, the city, everything his empire had consumed. This is justice. He walked back to the window, giving them his back. A power move. He was in control here. They couldn't touch him. Here's what's going to happen, Truman said. In 1 week, the loans I hold on your properties come due. The contracts that keep your businesses alive expire. The investments propping up your family's legacies dissolve. He turned to face them. Unless I choose to extend them, what do you want? Nathan asked quietly. It was the right question. Finally. I want you to understand what it feels like, Truman said. To be powerless. To watch everything you value slip away. To know that your future rests in the hands of someone who has every reason to watch you fall. This is extortion, Dominic blustered. This is business, Truman corrected. Perfectly legal. I suggest you get comfortable with the feeling. He moved toward the door, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. In 3 days, I'm hosting a charity gala. The entire city will be there, everyone who matters. You're all invited. I suggest you attend. What happens to your family's futures will be decided that night. You can't do this, Andrew said, and his voice cracked. The golden boy, reduced to begging. Please. Our families. Should have thought about that, Truman said coldly, before you made me wish I was dead. He opened the door. Mr. Cobb, a new voice said. Truman paused. It was Richard Sullivan, who'd been silent until now. Yes. I'm sorry, Richard said. For what we did. I know it doesn't mean anything now, but I'm sorry. Truman studied him. Richard looked like he meant it. It didn't matter. Save your apologies, Truman said. You're going to need them. He left them there, drowning in the wreckage of their own past cruelty. Back in his private office, Truman poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey he wouldn't drink and stared at the photograph hidden in his desk drawer. A young man, 60-something, in a janitor's uniform, smiling despite the hardness of his life. Brooks Keating. The only person who'd ever defended him. The man who'd left him an envelope after his death containing a stock certificate, a letter, and instructions that had seemed insane at the time. Asterisk, use this wisely, son. Power is a responsibility, not a weapon. Remember who you are. Asterisk. Truman closed the drawer. He remembered exactly who he was. The question was, did he remember who he was supposed to be? And in 3 days, when the gala arrived and the city's elite gathered under crystal chandeliers, would he choose mercy, or the complete annihilation of everyone who'd ever made him suffer? The answer would destroy everything. But whose destruction would it be? The penthouse was silent, except for the city's ambient hum 47 floors below. Truman loosened his tie and poured the whiskey he'd abandoned earlier down the sink. He didn't drink to celebrate. Celebration implied joy, and what he'd felt watching those men squirm wasn't joy. It was something colder. More surgical. You're doing that thing again. The voice came from the doorway. Truman didn't turn. He knew who it was. What thing? He asked. That thing where you pretend you're made of stone. Clarice Lawnit stepped into the room, her heels clicking against the marble. She'd been his director of operations for 3 years, the only person in his empire who'd earned the right to speak to him without filters. Sharp-featured, sharper-minded, with dark hair pulled into a perpetual bun and eyes that missed nothing. She'd also been the first person he'd hired when he started building Cobb Industries. Before the skyscrapers. Before the billions. When it was just him, a dying man's gift, and a fury that could have powered the sun. I'm fine, Truman said. You're spiraling. Clarice moved to the window beside him, arms crossed. I saw the security footage. The Stark and Hockley families. The Sullivans. You had them all in one room. I'm allowed to meet with investors. They're not investors. They're ghosts you're trying to exorcise. She studied his reflection in the glass. And you're going about it wrong. Truman's jaw tightened. I don't recall asking for your opinion. No, you asked for my loyalty. Which means telling you when you're about to make a mistake that'll cost you everything you've built. She paused. Brooks wouldn't want this. The name hit him like a fist. Truman turned to face her. Don't. Don't what? Don't remind you of the man who saved your life? Don't bring up the fact that he left you his entire fortune so you could build something, not destroy people who hurt you when you were 17. They deserve it. Maybe, Clarice conceded. But do you deserve to become the monster they said you were? The silence stretched. Outside, a helicopter's lights blinked across the sky. Finally, Truman spoke. When I was 15, Andrew Stark filmed me having a panic attack in the school bathroom. Posted it online. Within 2 hours, it had 10,000 views. Students I'd never met were sending me messages telling me to kill myself. His voice was eerily calm. My mother found me that night with a bottle of her sleeping pills. I hadn't taken them yet, but I was holding them, counting them. Clarice's expression softened, but she didn't interrupt. She cried, Truman continued. She held me and cried and asked me what she'd done wrong. What she'd done, like my pain was her failure. He looked at Clarice. So no, I don't think I'm being the monster. I think I'm being the reckoning they earned. And Brooks. Clarice pressed gently. What would he say? Truman turned back to the window. Brooks is dead. Because he spent his life savings on experimental treatment trying to stay alive long enough to make sure you'd be okay, Clarice said. He died broke and happy because he knew he'd given you a chance. Don't waste it on revenge. I'm not wasting anything. Truman's voice hardened. I'm building an empire. Brooks wanted me to have power. I have it. He wanted you to have purpose, Clarice corrected. There's a difference. Before Truman could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. Unknown number. He answered, putting it on speaker. Mr. Cobb. A woman's voice, young, uncertain. Who is this? My name is Mia Liddell. I'm Andrew Stark's sister. I need to talk to you, please. It's about my family and about, she hesitated, about what really happened to you in high school. Truman's eyes met Clarice's. I'm listening. Not on the phone. Can we meet? Tomorrow. I have information you need to hear. About my brother. About all of them. Her voice dropped. About who really orchestrated everything. Truman's pulse quickened. Where? She named a coffee shop. Neutral ground. Public. 1 p.m., she said. Come alone. If I see security, I'll disappear, and you'll never know the truth about why they targeted you. The line went dead. Clarice raised an eyebrow. That's not suspicious at all. Run a background check, Truman said immediately. Mia Liddell. Everything. Employment, financials, criminal record, social media history. I want to know what brand of toothpaste she uses. Already on it. Clarice was typing on her phone. But Truman? What if she's telling the truth? What if there's more to this than you know? Truman thought about the look on Andrew's face today. The fear. But also something else. Something that had almost looked like guilt. Then I'll find out tomorrow, he said. Truman didn't sleep that night. Instead, he did what he always did when the past clawed too close. He worked. Spreadsheets. Acquisition reports. The mathematical precision of business, where every variable could be controlled, every outcome calculated. At 3 a.m., he gave up and went to the room he never showed anyone. It was small, tucked behind a false wall in his penthouse. Inside, a recreation of Brooks Keating's basement apartment, where Truman had spent countless hours after the worst days at school. The same threadbare armchair. The same ancient TV. The same wooden chess set on a card table. Brooks had taught him chess. Taught him patience. Taught him that power wasn't about the pieces you had. It was about seeing 10 moves ahead while your opponent saw only one. Truman sat in the armchair, staring at the chess set. Brooks's last game, left unfinished. White to move. I'm trying, Truman said to the empty room. I'm trying to do what you wanted. But they hurt me, Brooks. They tried to break me. And now I have the power to break them back. The room offered no answers. His phone buzzed. Clarice's report on Mia Liddell. He scanned it quickly. 24 years old. Graduate degree in social work. Employed at a nonprofit helping at-risk youth. No criminal record. Moderate social media presence. Mostly advocacy work. nothing political. Parents, Dominic and Eleanor Stark. But here was the interesting part. 3 years ago, Mia had legally changed her last name from Stark to Liddell. Family estrangement suspected. No contact with her brother Andrew in public records or social media for the past 4 years. Truman leaned back. A Stark who'd disowned her family. Who worked with vulnerable kids. Who claimed to have information about his past. This could be a trap. Or it could be the missing piece. What do you think? Is Mia trustworthy, or is this a setup? Drop your theories in the comments. And hey, if you're getting invested in this story, and I know you are, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. This is just the beginning, and trust me, the twists are about to get wild. The next morning, Truman chose his armor carefully. Not a suit, too formal. Jeans, a simple button-down, expensive but understated. The billionaire trying to look approachable. A costume, like everything else. Clarice insisted on surveillance despite Mia's warning. Remote only, she promised. Cameras we already have in the area. I won't send bodies, but I'm not letting you walk in blind. Truman didn't argue. He'd learned to trust her instincts. The coffee shop was deliberately average. Chain establishment, mid-range prices, the kind of place where a billionaire and a social worker could meet without drawing attention. Truman arrived exactly on time. Mia Liddell was already there. She looked nothing like her brother. Where Andrew was broad and athletic even in his decline, Mia was petite, almost fragile. Light brown hair, minimal makeup, clothes that suggested function over fashion. But her eyes, dark, intelligent, haunted, those were pure Stark. She didn't stand when he approached. Just gestured to the seat across from her. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. Truman sat. "You said you have information." No small talk. A ghost of a smile. "I suppose I shouldn't expect it. I'm not here to be your friend, Ms. Liddell. It's Stark, actually." Well, it was. She wrapped both hands around her coffee mug like she needed the warmth. "I changed it because I didn't want to be associated with what my family did. What they are." "And what are they?" Mia looked at him directly. "Monsters. But not the way you think." Truman waited. "I was 12 when you were in high school with Andrew," Mia said. "Too young to understand what was happening, but old enough to know something was wrong. My brother came home one day. I remember this so clearly. He came home and he was upset. Said there was a kid at school, a poor kid, and some of the boys were giving him a hard time." She paused, took a sip of coffee. "My father asked who the kid was. Andrew said your name. Truman Cobb." Mia's voice dropped. "And my father's whole demeanor changed. He got this look, this cold, calculated look. And he said, 'That's Richard Cobb's son.'" Truman's blood went cold. "You knew my father?" "I didn't. But my father did. And so did Nathan Hockley and Marcus Sullivan, Richard's father." She leaned forward. "Mr. Cobb, what do you know about how your father died?" "Car accident," Truman said automatically. "He was driving home from work. Lost control on a wet road. Crashed into a barrier." Mia shook her head slowly. "That's what they made it look like." The world tilted. "What are you saying?" Truman's voice was barely controlled. "I'm saying my father and his partners killed your father. And then they made sure you paid for his sins for the rest of your childhood." Truman's hands clenched into fists under the table. "That's a serious accusation." "It's the truth." Mia pulled out a tablet, tapped a few times, then slid it across to him. 3 weeks ago, my father got drunk. Really drunk. Started talking about the old days. About a man who tried to expose their business deals, their under-the-table arrangements. A man who threatened to go to the authorities with evidence of fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion. The tablet showed a scanned document. Handwritten notes in a hasty scrawl. "My father kept journals," Mia explained. He's paranoid about digital records. These are from 15 years ago. Truman read. *R. Cobb becoming a problem. Has copies of the offshore accounts. Talk to Nathan and Marcus. We agree, this needs to be handled permanently. Can't risk exposure. Too much at stake. The sun will be collateral damage, but necessary. *. The words blurred. Truman blinked hard, forcing focus. My father, he said slowly, each word precise, was an accountant. He worked for a mid-level firm. He didn't have access to. He did freelance auditing, Mia interrupted gently. One of his clients was a holding company owned by my father, Nathan Hockley, and Marcus Sullivan. He found irregularities. Started asking questions. They couldn't let him talk. Truman's mind was racing. His father, who'd been quiet and kind and who'd taught Truman to do the right thing even when it cost you. His father, who'd missed Truman's 10th birthday because of a work emergency. Who'd been stressed those last few months, distracted. Who'd died when Truman was 12, leaving him and his mother with nothing. Why are you telling me this? Truman demanded. Because I'm tired of living with monsters, Mia said. Because I watched my father and his friends destroy your life twice. Once when they killed your father, and again when they ordered their sons to make your life hell so you'd be too broken to ever ask questions about what really happened. The pieces were falling into place with horrible clarity. They told them to bully me, Truman said. Specifically. Not at first. At first, Andrew and the others probably picked on you because you were an easy target. Poor kid, no father, no protection. But once my father realized who you were, he encouraged it. Made sure it got worse. Made sure you were so traumatized, so beaten down, that you'd never be a threat. Truman stood abruptly, the chair scraping back. I need air. He walked outside, Mia following. The street was moderately busy, people passing with their small concerns, their small lives. None of them knowing that Truman's entire understanding of his past had just been detonated. There's more, Mia said. Of course there is. Truman's laugh was bitter. The gala you're hosting in 2 days. My father and the others, they're planning something. I don't know what exactly, but I heard them on a conference call. They're going to neutralize the threat before you can destroy them financially. Truman turned to her. Neutralize. Their word. Not mine. Mia's expression was grave. Mr. Cobb, these men killed your father to protect their secrets. They orchestrated years of psychological torture to keep you broken. What do you think they'll do now that you're powerful enough to ruin them? They'll try to kill me, Truman said flatly. Or destroy you another way. Scandal. Legal attacks. Character assassination. She paused. They're desperate. Desperate men do desperate things. Truman pulled out his phone, called Clarice. I need a full security review for the gala. And I need you to dig into Dominic Stark, Nathan Hockley, and Marcus Sullivan. Wait, Marcus Sullivan is dead. His widow isn't, Mia said. Eleanor Sullivan. She was part of it too. She runs the operation now. Truman relayed this to Clarice, who promised immediate action and hung up. He looked at Mia. Really looked at her. Why are you helping me? These are your family members. My family, Mia said quietly, murdered an innocent man and tortured his child for years. They don't deserve my loyalty. And, she hesitated. There's something else. Something I did. Or tried to do. What? Do you remember, in junior year, there was a day when Andrew came home with a black eye? Truman did remember. Andrew had been out of school for 3 days. Rumors had swirled about a fight, but details were scarce. I gave him that black eye, Mia said. I was 15. I'd figured out what he was doing to you. I'd seen some of the videos they posted, heard him bragging to his friends on the phone. So I confronted him. Told him he was a monster. When he laughed at me, I punched him. Despite everything, Truman felt something shift in his chest. My father punished me severely, Mia continued. Took away everything. Told me if I ever interfered again, he'd make sure I regretted it. So I couldn't stop them. But I tried. Once. I tried. The vulnerability in her voice was real. Truman had learned to detect lies, and this wasn't one. After that, Mia said, I counted down the days until I could leave. Went to college across the country. Changed my name. Built a life helping kids like you. Kids being bullied. Kids being broken by people who should protect them. It doesn't make up for what my family did. But it's something. Truman was silent for a long moment. The gala, he said finally. I want you there. Mia blinked. What? If they're planning something, I need someone on the inside. Someone they won't suspect. You're still a Stark by blood. You can move through that world. Be my eyes and ears. I haven't spoken to my father in 4 years. Then it's time for a reconciliation. Truman's voice was hard. Tell him you've been thinking. That you realize family is important. That you want to make amends. He'll believe it. Narcissists always believe people will come back to worship them eventually. Mia considered this. And what's my real job? Find out what they're planning. How they're going to move against me. And, he paused. Find me proof. Hard evidence. About my father's murder. About everything. That's dangerous. So is doing nothing. Truman met her eyes. They took everything from me. My father. My childhood. My sense of safety in the world. I want them to pay. But I want it to be legal. I want the whole city to know what they are. Mia nodded slowly. Okay, I'll do it. On one condition. What? When this is over, when you've won, you don't become them. You don't let this revenge turn you into the kind of man who destroys people without conscience. Truman thought of Brooks. Of Clarissa's warning. Of the chess game left unfinished. Deal, he said. They shook hands. Her grip was stronger than he expected. Back at the office, Clarisse was waiting with 3 lawyers and a security team. Tell me you didn't just recruit a Stark as a spy, she said. I recruited a Liddell who used to be a Stark and who happens to have inside information about a murder conspiracy, Truman corrected. Same thing. She could be playing you. She's not. Truman was surprised by his own certainty. Run additional background anyway. But I believe her. Since when do you believe anyone? Since I learned my father was murdered, and his killer spent 15 years making sure I was too broken to ever find out. That stopped Clarisse short. Jesus. Truman. I need everything, he cut her off, his voice controlled fury. Financial records. Travel logs. Phone records from 15 years ago. I need evidence that will stand up in court. And I need to know what they're planning for the gala. We'll triple security. No. Truman's eyes were cold. We'll let them make their move. Whatever they're planning, I want it to happen where the whole city can see. Where they can't hide or deny it. We'll be ready, and when they strike, we'll destroy them. Clarisse studied him. You're sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. What would you do if you discovered your father was murdered? Would you want legal justice or something more direct? Comment below. I'm genuinely curious about your take. And if this story is getting intense, make sure you're subscribed because we're just getting started. The next part is going to turn everything up to 11. That night, Truman returned to the hidden room, to the chess set, to Brooks's unfinished game. He studied the board with fresh eyes. White was in a precarious position, surrounded, outnumbered. From a casual glance, it looked like a losing game. But Brooks had taught him to look deeper. White had a move. A single move that would sacrifice the queen but would, 7 moves later, result in checkmate. The lesson was obvious. Sometimes you had to risk everything to win. Truman moved the White Queen, completing the combination Brooks had planned. I see it now, he said to the empty room. I see what you were trying to teach me. His phone buzzed. A message from Mia. Talk to my father. He bought it. I'm invited to the gala. He wants to show me what real power looks like. His words. Truman replied. Good. Stay safe. Report anything you learn. Another message, this one from an unknown number. Mr. Cobb. We need to meet. It's about Brooks Keating and what he really left you. You're in danger. More than you know. Truman stared at the message. Brooks had been dead for 5 years. What could anyone possibly know that Truman didn't? Unless Brooks had kept secrets too. He replied, Who is this? The response was immediate. Someone who owes Brooks my life. Meet me tomorrow. Same coffee shop.
6 Uhr morgens.
Come alone. Truman showed the message to Clarice via encrypted channel. Her response, it's a trap. Don't go, But Truman was already planning to go. Because if there was one thing he'd learned from Brooks, it was this. The most important pieces in the game were the ones you didn't know were on the board. And someone had just revealed themselves. The question was, were they a pawn, a knight, or the opposing queen? 6 a.m. arrived with rain. Truman watched it streak the windows of the coffee shop, arriving 15 minutes early, scanning for threats. The place was nearly empty. A barista. 2 customers with laptops. Nothing suspicious. At exactly 6 o'clock, the door opened. The woman who entered was in her mid-50s, elegant despite the weather, with silver-streaked hair and the kind of face that suggested a life spent smiling through hardship. She wore a simple raincoat and carried a worn leather briefcase. She spotted Truman immediately and walked to his table. Mr. Cobb, thank you for meeting me. You have me at a disadvantage, Truman said. You know my name, but I don't know yours. Evelyn Cale. She extended her hand. I was Brooks Keating's attorney. Truman shook her hand, his mind racing. Brooks had never mentioned an attorney. Then again, Brooks had been a janitor living on Social Security. Why would he need? Evelyn sat down, placing the briefcase on the table. I can see you're confused. Let me clarify. I wasn't Brooks's attorney for legal troubles. I was the executor of his estate. His estate was a studio apartment and a stock certificate worth $30,000, Truman said. No offense, but that doesn't typically require an attorney. The stock certificate was worth $30,000 when he gave it to you, Evelyn corrected. Do you know what it was worth when he bought it? Truman hesitated. No. $50 million. The world stopped. That's impossible, Truman said. Brooks was a janitor. He lived in poverty. He couldn't have. Brooks Keating, Evelyn interrupted gently, was one of the most successful venture capitalists of the 1980s. He made his fortune in early tech investments. By 1990, he was worth almost $200 million. Truman felt like he'd been punched. Then why? Why was he working as a janitor? Evelyn smiled sadly. Because he lost everything. Not financially. He'd put money in trusts, in long-term investments that couldn't be touched. But he lost his family. His wife and daughter were killed by a drunk driver. The driver was the son of a wealthy family who used their money and influence to make sure the boy served minimal time. The parallel to Truman's own story was not lost on him. Brooks had a breakdown, Evelyn continued. Gave away most of his accessible money to charity. Disappeared from high society. He said he wanted to live a real life, around real people. He wanted to understand what it meant to have nothing, so he'd never forget what he'd lost. He never told me any of this. He wanted you to know him as Brooks the janitor, not Brooks the millionaire. He said that's when people showed their true character, when they thought you had nothing to offer them. Evelyn opened the briefcase. But he watched you, Truman. He saw what those children did to you, saw how their parents protected them. It reminded him of his own tragedy. So he decided to give you what he'd given himself once, a chance to rebuild from nothing. She pulled out a thick folder. The stock certificate he gave you wasn't his only investment. It was a test. He wanted to see what you'd do with a small amount of capital. If you'd waste it, or build something meaningful. I built Cobb Industries, Truman said quietly. You did. And you did it brilliantly. Brooks followed your progress until the day he died. He was proud of you. Evelyn slid the folder across. Which is why he wanted you to have the rest. Truman opened the folder. Inside were documents. Stock certificates. Trust agreements. Asset declarations. His hands shook as he read the numbers. This says, he couldn't finish the sentence. Brooks left you the remainder of his fortune. Approximately $120 million in assets, held in various trusts and investments. With one condition, you don't get access until you turn 30, or until you prove you understand the responsibility that comes with power. Evelyn paused. He left me specific instructions on how to determine that. I'm 28, Truman said numbly. I know. Which means we have a decision to make. Evelyn leaned forward. Brooks wanted me to ask you one question. Your answer determines whether you get the inheritance now, or wait 2 more years. Truman looked at her. The question is this: if you had unlimited power to destroy the people who hurt you, with no consequences, no legal repercussions, complete immunity, would you do it? The rain continued its steady percussion against the window. Truman thought about Andrew Stark's face, Cameron Hockley's fear, the years of pain, the humiliation, the night he'd held a bottle of pills and counted them like prayers. He thought about his mother, who died from a heart attack 3 years after his father's accident, her body simply giving up from the stress and grief and work. He thought about Dominic Stark and Nathan Hockley and Eleanor Sullivan, who'd murdered his father and then systematically destroyed his childhood to cover their tracks. No, Truman said. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. No. I wouldn't do it, Truman said. Because if I destroy them without consequences, they become martyrs. Their children remember them as victims. The world never knows what they really were. But if I expose them legally, if I make sure the whole city knows what they did, then they're destroyed and the truth wins. That's the power I want. Not immunity from consequences. The power to make consequences matter. Evelyn's smile was genuine. That's exactly what Brooks hoped you'd say. She pulled out another document. Sign here. The funds will be transferred to your control within 72 hours. Truman signed, his hand steady despite the magnitude of what was happening. There's one more thing, Evelyn said. Brooks left you a letter. He wrote it the day before he died. He asked me to give it to you at this exact moment. She handed him an envelope. Truman opened it with careful fingers. Dear Truman, asterisk if you're reading this, Evelyn has asked you the question, and you've given the right answer. I'm proud of you, son. Prouder than you'll ever know. Asterisk. Asterisk, I know what those people did to you. I know what they did to your father. Yes, I knew about Richard. I'm sorry I never told you, but I didn't have proof, and I couldn't risk making things worse for you while you were still vulnerable. Asterisk. Asterisk, you're probably angry that I kept secrets. I don't blame you. But I need you to understand, I gave you that first stock certificate not as charity, but as a test. I needed to know if power would corrupt you the way it corrupts everyone else. I needed to know if you'd use money as a weapon or as a tool. Asterisk. Asterisk, you used it to build, to create jobs, to help communities. Even as you position yourself to confront your enemies, you did it by creating something positive. That's who you are, Truman. That's who you've always been, asterisk. Asterisk, the money I'm leaving you isn't a gift. It's a responsibility. Use it to finish what you've started. Expose the corruption. Bring them to justice. But don't become them. Don't let revenge turn you into another rich man who believes power makes him untouchable. Asterisk. Asterisk. Remember, the most powerful piece on the chessboard isn't the queen. It's the king. Because the king is the one worth protecting. Be worth protecting, Truman. Be the man your father wanted you to be. Asterisk. Asterisk. I wish I could be there to see you win. But I trust you'll do it right. Asterisk. With love and pride. Brooks. Truman read it twice, then folded it carefully and put it in his pocket. Thank you, he said to Evelyn. For everything. Brooks would have wanted me to ask, is there anything you need? Any way I can help with whatever you're planning? Truman considered this. Can you get me 15-year-old phone records? Financial transactions? Things that might be hard for regular channels to access. Evelyn smiled. Brooks had connections that survived his retirement. Give me the names and dates. I'll see what I can find. Truman gave her the details about Dominic Stark, Nathan Hockley, and the Sullivans. About his father's death. About everything. Evelyn made notes, then promised to be in touch within 24 hours. After she left, Truman sat alone with the rain and the revelation that he'd just inherited another fortune, and the weight of expectation that came with it. His phone buzzed. Mia, asterisk, found something. My father's study. Can you meet tonight? I can get you in. Asterisk. Truman, asterisk, too risky. If they catch you, asterisk. Mia, asterisk, they won't. My father's going to a council meeting. My mother has a charity thing. The house will be empty except for security, and I know the codes. This might be our only chance before the gala. Asterisk. Truman hesitated, then called Clarice. Tell me you're not about to do something stupid, she said by way of greeting. I need a surveillance team and a backup plan. Mia Liddell is getting me into Dominic Stark's house tonight. Truman. I know it's risky, but if there's evidence about my father's murder, it's there. And we're running out of time. Clarice sighed. Fine. But I'm coming with you. Mia said. I don't care what Mia said. You're not walking into a potential trap without me there to pull you out. Non-negotiable. Truman smiled despite himself. Deal. The Stark mansion sat on 3 acres of manicured perfection in the most exclusive neighborhood in the city. Truman had driven past it once as a teenager, delivering pizzas to help his mother with rent. He'd stared at the iron gates and the sprawling lawn and hated everything it represented. Now he was walking through the front door like he belonged there. Mia had disarmed the security system with codes that apparently hadn't been changed since she'd lived there. Arrogance, Truman thought. The wealthy always assumed their castles were impenetrable. Clarice waited in a car 2 blocks away, monitoring via the body camera Truman wore under his jacket. His study is upstairs, Mia whispered, leading him through a foyer that probably cost more than most people's houses. He keeps everything important in a safe. I know the combination. It's my dead grandmother's birthday. He's predictable that way. They climbed the staircase. Truman's heart was pounding, but his hands were steady. This was what he'd been building toward. Proof. Evidence. Justice. The study was exactly what he expected. Wood paneling, leather furniture, walls lined with books that had probably never been read. The scent of expensive cigars and older money. The safe was behind a painting. Of course it was behind a painting. These people had no imagination. Mia opened it on the first try. Inside, documents. So many documents. Property deeds. Stock certificates. And here, Mia breathed, pulling out a journal. The same handwriting Truman had seen on the tablet earlier. This is from 15 years ago. Truman opened it, and there it was. All of it. Detailed discussions about handling the Cobb problem. Mentions of tampering with a car's brake line. Confirmation of Richard Cobb's accident. And then, in Dominic's meticulous handwriting. Asterisk, the boy is becoming a liability. He asks too many questions about his father. Discussed with Nathan and Marcus, we agree the best solution is to make sure he's too broken to be a threat. Our sons will handle it. Better they learn young how to protect family interests. Asterisk. Truman's vision blurred with rage. Truman! Mia's voice seemed to come from far away. Are you okay? They ordered it, he said, his voice hollow. They told their sons to destroy me. It wasn't just bullying. It was premeditated psychological torture.
I'm sorry, Mia whispered.
I'm so sorry. Truman pulled out his phone, photographed every page. Clarice would have digital copies within seconds, backed up to multiple secure servers. We need to go, Mia said. We've been here too long. The sound of a car in the driveway. They froze. That's my father's car, Mia said, her face going white. He wasn't supposed to be back until... Where's the back exit? Truman demanded. There isn't one from this floor. We'd have to go downstairs, but he comes in through the main entrance. Clarice's voice crackled in Truman's earpiece. I'm seeing a vehicle. Get out now. The front door opened. Voices. Truman's mind raced. If Dominic found them here, it would compromise everything. Mia would be in danger. The evidence wouldn't be admissible. They needed. The window, Mia said suddenly. There's a trellis. It's old, but it might hold. Might. Better than getting caught. They could hear footsteps on the stairs. Truman grabbed the journal, screw admissibility, he wanted the original, and moved to the window. Mia opened it, and the rain hit them immediately. The trellis looked like a death wish. Ladies first, Truman said. Chivalry's dead, Mia shot back, but she went, climbing down with the practiced ease of someone who'd snuck out as a teenager. Truman followed. The wood groaned under his weight. He was halfway down when a section broke. He fell the last 8 feet, landing hard on wet grass. Pain shot through his ankle. Mia helped him up. Can you walk? I can run if I have to. Truman tested the ankle. Sprained, not broken. He'd manage. They made it to Clarice's car just as lights came on in the study above. Drive, Truman said, diving into the back seat with Mia. Clarice drove, calm and fast, navigating the wealthy neighborhood like she'd planned an escape route, which, knowing her, she had. Did you get what you needed? She asked. Truman held up the journal. Enough to bury them. In the back seat, Mia was shaking. Adrenaline crash. You okay? Truman asked. I just broke into my father's house and stole evidence of murder, she said. I'm the opposite of okay. But, she looked at him. It's done. You have proof. You can end this. Truman nodded. But he was thinking about the gala tomorrow night. About Dominic and Nathan and Eleanor, who would be there, expecting to neutralize him somehow. They had no idea he was 10 moves ahead. Tomorrow night, he said. Everything changes. Clarice caught his eye in the rearview mirror. You ready for this? Truman thought about Brooks's letter. About his father, who'd tried to do the right thing and died for it. About his mother, who'd worked herself to death trying to give him a future. About the boy he'd been, broken and terrified and wishing he'd never been born. I've been ready for 15 years, he said. The night before the gala, Truman couldn't sleep. He stood in his penthouse, the city lights below like scattered diamonds, and reviewed the plan one more time. Clarice had arranged everything. The guest list vetted, security positioned at every entrance, plainclothes police ready to move on his signal. Evelyn had delivered phone records from 15 years ago showing calls between Dominic, Nathan, and the late Marcus Sullivan in the days before Richard Cobb's accident. The evidence was damning. Tomorrow night, in front of the city's elite, Truman would expose them. He'd arranged for a presentation, ostensibly about Cobb Industries' charitable initiatives. But the screens would show something else entirely. The journal entries, the financial records, the timeline of his father's murder and the conspiracy that followed. It was perfect. Surgical. Devastating. So why did he feel like he was missing something? His phone rang. Mia. It's midnight, he answered. You should be sleeping. So should you. Her voice was tight. Truman, I need to tell you something. I should have told you earlier, but I was afraid you wouldn't trust me. His pulse quickened. What is it? Can I come up? I'm outside your building. 5 minutes later, she was in his penthouse, dripping rain onto his marble floor, her eyes red like she'd been crying. What happened? Truman demanded. Mia pulled an envelope from her jacket. After we left my father's house, I kept thinking about something. About why Brooks Keating had so much money, and why he chose you specifically. So I did some research. She handed him the envelope. Inside were printouts. News articles from 30 years ago. A photo of a young Brooks Keating standing next to another man. The caption read, **, Brooks Keating and Richard Cobb celebrate successful technology merger. **. Truman stared. My father knew Brooks. They were business partners, Mia said. In the early 80s, before you were born. Brooks was the money guy, your father was the technical analyst. They made a fortune together in tech investments. That's impossible. My father was an accountant. He wasn't. He was an accountant because he and Brooks had a falling out, Mia interrupted. Look at the next article. Truman read. *, Keating-Cobb investment partnership dissolves amid dispute over ethics violations. The article detailed allegations that Brooks had engaged in insider trading. Richard Cobb had threatened to expose him unless Brooks agreed to dissolve their partnership and return money to affected clients. Brooks had agreed, lost most of his fortune in the process, and the men had parted ways. This doesn't make sense, Truman said. Brooks wasn't corrupt. He was the most ethical person I've ever known. Read the date, Mia said softly. The article was dated 6 months before the supposed insider trading. But there was a correction at the bottom, printed months later. *, Previous allegations against Brooks Keating have been found to be falsified. Mr. Keating has been cleared of all wrongdoing. The source of the false allegations is under investigation. *. Truman's hands shook. Someone set him up. 3 guesses who? Mia pulled out another document. I found this in my father's safe, tucked into the journal. I didn't understand what it was at first, but after researching Brooks, it clicked. It was a contract. A payment of $250,000 from Dominic Stark to a private investigation firm, dated 30 years ago. The stated purpose, corporate intelligence gathering Keating-Cobb partnership. They wanted to break up Brooks and your father, Mia said. Because together, they were powerful enough to compete with my father's business interests. So they fabricated evidence, destroyed their partnership, and destroyed Brooks's life, Truman finished. His wife and daughter died 3 years after this. He said it was a drunk driver, but the driver was Nathan Hockley's nephew, Mia said. I found the court records. The case was buried under settlements and NDAs, but it's there. The room tilted. They didn't just kill my father, Truman said slowly. They killed Brooks's family too. They've been destroying lives for decades. And Brooks knew, Mia said. He had to have known, or at least suspected. That's why he became a janitor. Why he lived in poverty. He was hiding from them, staying beneath their notice. Until he found me. Truman's voice was hollow. He saw what they were doing to me, and he couldn't walk away again. The stock certificate he gave you wasn't random, Mia said. He was giving you the tools to finish what he and your father started, taking down the people who've been corrupting this city for 30 years. Truman walked to the window. Rain lashed against the glass. There's more, Mia said quietly. The gala tomorrow. I found out what they're planning. Truman turned. They're going to accuse you of fraud, Mia said. They've manufactured evidence that you've been embezzling from your own company, using Cobb Industries to launder money. Tomorrow night, in front of everyone, they're going to have federal agents arrest you. That's insane. Any investigation would prove. They don't need it to stick, Mia interrupted. They just need the accusation. The scandal. Your reputation destroyed, your assets frozen during the investigation. By the time you're cleared, they'll have dismantled your company and distributed the pieces to themselves. They have federal agents on their payroll? Truman's mind was racing. One agent. A man named Carmine LaRusso. He's been taking bribes from my father for years. He's the one who's supposed to make the arrest. Mia pulled out her phone, showed him a photo of a stern-faced man in a suit. I overheard my father on the phone with him this afternoon. Truman called Clarice immediately. Put her on speaker. We have a problem, he said, and explained. Clarice was silent for 10 seconds. Then, okay, we can work with this. If we know they're coming, we can flip it. I'll contact the FBI's Internal Affairs Division, alert them to a potentially corrupt agent. We'll have real federal agents there, waiting to arrest LaRusso when he tries to arrest you. They'll just deny everything, Truman said. It'll be our word against theirs. Not if we record it, Mia said suddenly. What if I wear a wire tomorrow? Get my father to admit the plan on tape before it happens. Too dangerous, Truman and Clarice said simultaneously. It's the only way, Mia insisted. He trusts me now. Thinks I've come back to the family. I can get him talking. Truman looked at her, really looked at her. In the low light of his penthouse, soaked from rain, determination burning in her eyes, she looked like someone willing to walk through fire for what was right. And he realized with sudden clarity that somewhere in the chaos of the past few days, she'd become more than an ally. No, he said firmly. I won't risk your safety. It's not your choice, Mia said. This is my family. My responsibility. Let me fix this. Mia. Please. She stepped closer. They've been destroying people my whole life. I've been running from them, trying to pretend I wasn't part of it. But I was. I am. My education, my comfortable childhood, all of it was built on blood money and broken lives. Let me do this one thing that actually matters. The vulnerability in her voice cracked something in Truman's chest. If anything happens to you, he started. It won't. I know how to handle my father. I've been doing it my whole life. She pulled out a small device from her pocket. I already have the recording equipment. Clarice helped me get it this afternoon. Truman looked at Clarice via phone. You knew about this? She came to me with the idea. I told her it was dangerous. She said she didn't care. Clarice's voice softened. Truman, she's right. A recording of Dominic Stark admitting to the plan would be the final piece. Combined with everything else, they'd have no way out. Truman wanted to argue, wanted to protect Mia from the danger, from her own family's corruption. But he saw the determination in her face and recognized it. It was the same determination he'd felt at 17, swearing that one day he'd rise above the people who'd broken him. Okay, he said finally. But you're not doing this alone. Clarice will have a team monitoring every word. At the first sign of danger, we pull you out.
Mia nodded.
Agreed. She moved toward the door, then stopped. Turned back. Truman, why are you really doing this? Is it just revenge, or is it something more? He thought about Brooks's letter, about his father's integrity, about all the other victims of Dominic Stark's corruption who'd never had the power to fight back. At first, it was revenge, he admitted. But now I think it's about making sure this ends. So no one else loses their father, their childhood, their future. Mia smiled, and it was sad and beautiful. Brooks chose well. After she left, Clarice said, You care about her. It wasn't a question. She's brave, Truman said. Braver than I am. She's risking everything to stop her own family. That's not what I asked. Truman was quiet for a moment. I don't know. Maybe. Is that insane? She's the daughter of the man who killed my father. She's not her father, Clarice said. Any more than you're defined by what was done to you. Brooks taught you that, didn't he? That we get to choose who we become. Truman touched the envelope in his pocket, Brooks's letter, which he'd carried every day since receiving it. Yeah, he said. He did. The gala was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across a ballroom filled with the city's most powerful people. Women in designer gowns, men in tuxedos, champagne flowing like water, an orchestra playing something classical and pretentious. The perfect setting for the wealthy to congratulate themselves on their success while ignoring how they'd achieved it. Truman stood at the edge of the room, watching. He wore a custom tuxedo that cost more than his mother's yearly salary had been, and he felt like an imposter. Not because he didn't belong in these clothes, he'd earned every thread, but because he was surrounded by people who'd never had to earn anything. Clarice approached, elegant in a navy gown, earpiece hidden beneath her upswept hair. Mia's in position. She's with her father in the VIP lounge. Recording is active. Truman nodded. Through the crowd, he could see Andrew Stark, looking uncomfortable in his formal wear. Cameron Hockley, drinking too fast. Richard Sullivan, staying close to his mother Eleanor, who commanded the room like a queen surveying her subjects. Dominic Stark emerged from the VIP lounge, Mia on his arm. She looked stunning in a silver gown, playing the role of devoted daughter perfectly. But Truman could see the tension in her shoulders. We have audio, Clarice murmured. Nothing incriminating yet. Small talk. Truman waited. The presentation was scheduled for 9 p.m., 30 minutes from now. That's when he'd take the stage, and that's when Dominic expected Agent LaRusso to make his move. Except LaRusso was currently in FBI custody, singing like a canary about the bribes he'd taken. Real federal agents were stationed throughout the venue, ready to arrest Dominic, Nathan, and Eleanor the moment they had enough evidence. Everything was going according to plan. So why did Truman feel like the walls were closing in? His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him check. The message was a photo. It took him 3 seconds to understand what he was seeing. When he did, his blood turned to ice. It was Evelyn Cale, Brooks's attorney, tied to a chair in what looked like a warehouse. Her face was bruised, blood on her lip. And standing behind her, smiling at the camera, was a man Truman didn't recognize. The next message, * we have the lawyer. She's been very informative about your plans. If you proceed with your presentation tonight, she dies. Come to the address I'm sending. Alone. You have 20 minutes. *. Truman's hands shook. He showed Clarice. It's a trap, she said immediately. They're trying to separate you from security. They have Evelyn. We don't know that for sure. This could be photoshopped, staged. Another message. A video this time. Evelyn, crying, begging.
Truman, I'm sorry.
They knew about the phone records. They've known everything. It's a trap. Don't come. Don't. The video cut off. Clarice. I'm tracking the number. Give me 30 seconds. Her fingers flew across her phone. Got it. Warehouse District, East Side. Truman, you can't go. We call the police, send tactical teams. There's no time. They said 20 minutes. Which is exactly what they want you to think. This is classic hostage manipulation. They're counting on you being emotional, making rash decisions. They have Brooks's attorney. Truman's voice rose. Several nearby guests glanced over. He lowered it. She's in danger because of me. Because she helped me. And if you go, you'll both be dead. Clarice grabbed his arm. Truman, think. Use the brain Brooks gave you. This is a chess game. They're sacrificing a piece to take your king. She was right. He knew she was right. But he also knew what it felt like to be powerless and terrified, to be hurt by people who had no conscience. He couldn't leave Evelyn to that fate. Stall the presentation, he said. Tell them technical difficulties. I need an hour. Truman. I'm taking a security team. Full tactical. We'll be smart about this. But I'm going. Clarice's jaw tightened. Then I'm coming with you.
No.
I need you here, monitoring Mia, making sure she's safe. If this goes wrong, someone has to be here to protect her. Before Clarice could argue, Truman was moving, signaling his head of security, a former Special Forces operative named Jack McCroskey. Within 2 minutes, they were in an armored SUV heading east, for additional security personnel in a trailing vehicle. Truman's phone rang.
Mia.
Where are you going? She asked. I can see you leaving. They have Evelyn. It's a trap, but I don't have a choice. Truman, wait. My father just got a phone call. He looked happy. Really happy. I think. Static. The call dropped. Truman tried calling back. No answer. Faster, he told Jack. The warehouse was exactly where the message said it would be. Dark. Isolated. Every instinct screaming danger. Jack and his team swept the perimeter. 2 guards outside, northeast corner. Heat signatures inside. Looks like 3 people. 1 stationary, probably the hostage. Rules of engagement, one of the team members asked. Non-lethal if possible, Truman said. But protect yourselves. These people have killed before. They moved in with professional precision. The exterior guards went down without firing a shot, tranquilizer darts. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of crates and shadows. They found Evelyn exactly where the video had shown her. Still tied to the chair. Still bleeding. But something was wrong. She was alone.
No guards. No captors.
It's a trap, Jack said. We need to abort. The explosion came from outside. A massive fireball that lit up the night, followed by the unmistakable sound of automatic gunfire. The vehicles, one of the team members shouted. They're destroying the vehicles. Jack was already moving, positioning his team between Truman and the danger. But the gunfire was coming from multiple directions now. Professional. Coordinated. They knew we'd come heavy, Jack said. This was planned. Truman ran to Evelyn, cutting her restraints. Can you walk? It's you they want, she gasped. Truman, they knew everything. Someone told them. Someone on the inside. More gunfire. Closer. Jack returned fire, providing cover. East exit, one of the security team members shouted. We can. He went down, shot in the shoulder. Not dead, but bleeding. They were pinned. Truman's phone rang. He knew who it would be before he answered. Dominic Stark's voice was smooth as silk. Hello, Truman. Enjoying the party. Where are you? At your gala, of course. Wonderful event. Though I'm afraid the host has abandoned his guests. Very rude. A pause. Here's what's going to happen. Your security team is going to stand down and walk away. You're going to stay right where you are. And then we're going to have a conversation about the future. If you hurt Evelyn, Evelyn is leverage. Just like the recording you have of my daughter is leverage. Yes, I know about that too. Mia's microphone has been transmitting to me as well. Did you really think I wouldn't sweep for bugs? Truman's heart stopped. If you touch her, she's my daughter. I won't harm her. But let's say she's currently secured. Safe, but unable to interfere. Dominic's voice hardened. Your choice is simple. Surrender yourself, call off whatever federal agents you have waiting at the gala, And Evelyn lives. Mia lives. Your security team lives. Refuse, and they all die. You have 60 seconds. The call ended. Jack was looking at him. Sir. Truman's mind raced through possibilities. If Dominic had Mia, if he'd known about the recording, then the entire plan was compromised. The federal agents would have no evidence. Dominic would claim the journal was stolen property, inadmissible. The phone records were circumstantial. Without the recording, Truman had nothing concrete enough to guarantee convictions. And Mia was in danger. Tell your team to stand down, Truman said quietly. Sir, I can't. That's an order. Truman looked at him. Get Evelyn out of here. Get your wounded man to a hospital. I'll handle this. They'll kill you. Maybe. But if I run, they'll definitely kill Evelyn and Mia. At least this way, there's a chance. Jack's expression said he thought Truman was insane, but he followed orders. Within 3 minutes, the security team was evacuating with Evelyn, and Truman was alone. The gunfire stopped. A figure emerged from the shadows. Not Dominic, someone Truman didn't recognize. Tall, professional, with the dead eyes of a man who killed for money. Phone, the man said. Weapons. Everything. Truman complied. The man searched him efficiently, found the backup phone Clarice had insisted he carry, the small knife in his jacket lining. Walk. They went deeper into the warehouse, to a section that had been set up like an office. Dominic Stark sat behind a desk like he was conducting a board meeting. Nathan Hockley stood to his right. Eleanor Sullivan to his left. And in the corner, tied to a chair just like Evelyn had been, was Mia. You bastard! Truman started toward her. 2 guns appeared, pointed at his chest. He stopped. She's fine, Dominic said. Disappointed in her father, I'm sure. But fine. He gestured to a chair. Sit. We have business to discuss. Truman sat, his eyes on Mia. She looked terrified but unharmed. I have to admit, Dominic said, you surprised me. Poor little Truman Cobb, the boy we destroyed, coming back as a billionaire. I underestimated you. I won't make that mistake again. You killed my father, Truman said flatly. I eliminated a threat to my business interests, Dominic corrected. Just as I eliminated Brooks Keating's family when he became inconvenient. Just as I've eliminated dozens of obstacles over the years. It's not personal, Truman. It's economics. You had your son torture me for years. I had my son neutralize a potential problem. You were asking questions about your father's death, making teachers concerned. I couldn't have you stumbling onto the truth, so I made sure you were too broken to be dangerous. Dominic leaned forward. And it worked. You disappeared. We thought you'd probably killed yourself, honestly. When you resurfaced as a businessman, I was, well, impressed. Annoyed, but impressed. You're confessing to murder, Truman said. You realize that, right? To whom? Dominic smiled. You. You're in no position to tell anyone. Your security team is gone. Your federal agents have no evidence. I've already had Agent LaRusso released on a technicality, and he's willing to testify that he was entrapped by your operative. The phone records can be explained as legitimate business calls. The journal is stolen property. You have nothing. Nathan Hockley spoke for the first time. We're giving you a choice, Mr. Cobb. A genuine opportunity. What choice? Work with us, Eleanor Sullivan said. Her voice was cultured, cold. You've built an impressive empire. We could use someone with your skills. Merge Cobb Industries with our holdings. You'd retain a leadership position, continue to make money, and in exchange, you forget about the past. Truman laughed. It was a bitter, hollow sound. You think I'd work with the people who killed my parents? Your mother died of natural causes, Dominic said. My mother died of a broken heart after working herself to death because you murdered my father. Truman's voice echoed in the warehouse. You don't get to rewrite that. Then you refuse? Nathan asked. I refuse. Dominic sighed. That's unfortunate. Because now we have to do this the hard way. He pulled out a document. This is a confession. You've been overwhelmed by guilt about the illegal activities you used to build your fortune. Embezzlement, fraud, insider trading. Tomorrow morning, this will be found in your apartment, along with your body.
Tragique suicide.
The pressures of success were just too much. Ice flooded Truman's veins. You're going to kill me and make it look like suicide. We're going to eliminate a threat, Dominic corrected. Just like we've done before. And this time, we'll make sure there's no orphan left behind to seek revenge 20 years later. Mia was crying, shaking her head. Father, please. Don't do this. You brought this on yourself, Dominic said to her. Betraying your family. I raised you better than this. You raised me to be a monster like you, Mia shot back.
Ungläufeld.
Dominic's expression hardened. You'll be dealt with after. For now, say goodbye to your boyfriend. The man with dead eyes pulled out a gun. Advanced toward Truman. This was it. This was how it ended. Not with justice. Not with victory. But with a bullet and a staged suicide note. Brooks had been wrong. Power wasn't enough. Money wasn't enough. The monsters always won because they were willing to do what decent people wouldn't. Truman closed his eyes and thought of his father. His mother. Brooks. I'm sorry I couldn't finish this. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. But Truman didn't feel pain. He opened his eyes. The man with the gun was on the ground, unconscious. Standing behind where he'd been, holding a metal pipe, was Andrew Stark. Andrew! Dominic's voice was shocked. What are you? I'm done, Andrew said. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. I'm done being your attack dog. I'm done hurting people. I'm done. He looked at Truman. I've been following you since you left the gala. I heard everything. The plan to kill you. All of it. He pulled out his phone. And I recorded everything. Every word. Dominic's face went purple. You traitor. No, Dad. You're the traitor. You betrayed everything a father should be. You turned me into a monster, and I let you. Andrew's voice cracked. But not anymore. Nathan Hockley pulled a gun. Give me the phone, Andrew. I've already uploaded it, Andrew said. Cloud storage. Sent copies to the FBI, the district attorney, every news station in the city. Even if you kill all of us, it's over. Eleanor Sullivan moved toward the exit. One of Andrew's companions. Truman realized there were 3 other people who'd entered with Andrew, all young men he recognized from high school, blocked her path. Richard, Eleanor said to one of them. You're going to side with them against your own mother? Richard Sullivan looked at her with something like pity. You killed an innocent man, Mom. You destroyed families. I've spent years pretending I didn't know what you were. I'm done pretending. Cameron Hockley was there too, and another young man Truman didn't recognize. It's over, Andrew said to his father. You're done. Dominic lunged for Andrew's phone. Andrew pulled back, and in the struggle, Nathan Hockley raised his gun.
No. Mia screamed.
Everything happened at once. Cameron knocked Nathan's arm, sending the shot wild. The warehouse door burst open, Clarice and a tactical team, real FBI agents behind them. And Truman was moving, tackling Dominic Stark to the ground with 15 years of rage behind the impact. They hit hard, Dominic's head cracking against concrete. Truman drew back his fist. Don't, a voice said. Clarice, standing over him. Don't become him. You're better than this. Truman looked down at Dominic, seeing an old man now. Pathetic. Defeated. The monster who'd haunted his nightmares reduced to just another criminal in handcuffs. He lowered his fist. FBI agents were reading rights, securing the scene. Nathan and Eleanor were handcuffed, shouting about lawyers. Dominic was silent, his empire crumbling around him with the weight of his own words recorded and uploaded to the world. Truman went to Mia, cutting her restraints with a knife an agent handed him. "Are you okay?" he asked. She threw her arms around him, sobbing. "I thought they were going to kill you. I thought."
I'm okay.
"We're okay." He held her while she cried, and over her shoulder, he saw Andrew standing alone, looking lost. Truman gently disentangled from Mia and walked to Andrew. "Why?" he asked. "Why help me? After everything?" Andrew's eyes were red. "Because I've spent every day for the past 10 years hating myself for what I did to you. Because I was 17 and stupid and I listened to my father instead of my conscience. Because—" his voice broke. "Because you didn't deserve what we did. And I didn't know how to stop being the person who hurt you until tonight." Truman studied him. The boy who'd filmed his panic attack. Who'd led the others in making his life hell. Who'd been a weapon wielded by a monster of a father. "What you did to me," Truman said slowly, "I'll never forget. But what you did tonight, standing up to him, recording his confession, risking yourself to stop this, that took courage I didn't think you had. Does that mean you forgive me?" Andrew asked, and his voice was small, childlike. "No," Truman said honestly. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it means I see you trying to be better. That's something." Andrew nodded, tears streaming down his face.
I'm sorry.
"I'm so sorry." Richard Sullivan approached. "I'm sorry too. I was weak. I let them turn me into someone I hate." Cameron Hockley was next. "I have no excuse. What I did was evil. But for what it's worth, I'm sorry." Truman looked at them, his tormentors, reduced to broken young men trying to escape their father's shadows. "You want forgiveness," he said. "Testify. Tell the prosecutors everything. Every conversation, every order, every crime your parents committed. Help me make sure they never hurt anyone again. Do that, and maybe we can talk about forgiveness." They nodded, all three of them. Clarice appeared at Truman's elbow. "The press is outside. News got out fast. They're calling it the scandal of the decade." Truman took a deep breath. "Good. Let them see. Let everyone see what these people really are." Mia took his hand. "What happens now?" "Now," Truman said, "we go back to the gala. We give the presentation we planned. We tell the truth. The whole truth." Clarice asked. Truman thought about Brooks's letter. About being worth protecting. "The whole truth," he confirmed. "About my father. About Brooks. About how power corrupts, and how we have to choose every day to be better than the people who hurt us." Be honest. Did you see Andrew's redemption coming? Drop your reaction in the comments. I want to know if you think he deserves a second chance. And if you're not subscribed yet, seriously, what are you waiting for? We're about to wrap this up with the most satisfying ending. Hit that button. They returned to the gala at midnight. The ballroom was buzzing with rumors. Some guests had left, but most stayed, hungry for the scandal. Truman took the stage, Mia beside him. Clarice had arranged for the presentation materials to be updated with the new information, the recordings, the arrests, everything. The room fell silent as Truman began to speak. "My name is Truman Cobb," he said. "And 15 years ago, I was a poor kid from the East Side who was tortured by his classmates and broken by their parents. Tonight, I'm going to tell you why." He told them everything. About Richard Cobb, who'd discovered fraud and paid with his life. About Brooks Keating, who'd lost his family to the same corruption. About Dominic Stark, Nathan Hockley, and Eleanor Sullivan, who'd built fortunes on murder and manipulation. About the sons who'd been weapons, and who tonight had chosen to be something different. The screens showed the evidence. The journal entries, the recordings, the timeline of deaths and destroyed lives. By the end, people were crying. Some in shame, they'd done business with these families, looked up to them. Some in rage, some in solidarity. I didn't come back for revenge, Truman said. Though I won't lie, I wanted it. But I learned from a man named Brooks Keating that power is a responsibility, not a weapon. That we get to choose who we become. That the most important thing we can do with our strength is protect people who don't have any. He paused, looking out at the crowd. Cobb Industries will continue. But moving forward, we're establishing the Richard Cobb Foundation, dedicated to investigating corruption, protecting whistleblowers, and supporting children affected by corporate crime. We're also partnering with Mia Liddell's nonprofit to provide resources for victims of bullying and abuse. Mia stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tears on her face. My family did terrible things. I can't undo that. But I can use my resources, my knowledge, to make sure other families don't suffer the same way. That's what I'm dedicating my life to. The applause started slowly, then built to a thunderous wave. Later, after the speeches and the interviews and the chaos, Truman found himself alone with Mia on a balcony overlooking the city. You know this doesn't end tonight, she said. The trials will take years. The appeals. The media circus. I know, Truman said. But they're finished. The truth is out. That's what matters. Mia leaned against the railing. What about us? Is there an us? Or was that just convenience? Truman turned to her. I don't know. Your father killed mine. My quest for justice destroyed your family. That's a lot of baggage. It is, she agreed. But we're not our parents. We get to choose who we are. Isn't that what you said? Is that what you want? To choose this. He gestured between them. Mia smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. I spent years running from my family's sins. But tonight, I stood up to them. With you. Because of you. So yes, I want to choose this. If you do. Truman thought about Brooks's words. About being worth protecting. About choosing to be better. I do, he said. She kissed him, and it was gentle and fierce and full of the promise that broken people could heal each other, that cycles of violence could be broken, that redemption was possible. When they pulled apart, the city lights glittered below them like stars that had fallen to earth. What happens tomorrow? Mia asked. Tomorrow, Truman said, we start building something better than what they destroyed. And for the first time in 15 years, he felt something that wasn't rage or pain or the cold satisfaction of revenge. He felt hope. The trial began 3 months later. The media called it the trial of the decade. Every major news outlet covered it. The courtroom was packed daily with journalists, activists, families of other victims who'd been crushed by the Stark-Hockley-Sullivan machine over the years. Truman attended every day, sitting in the front row. Mia beside him. Clarice on his other side. A united front. The prosecution had built a case that was nothing short of devastating. The journal entries. The phone records. The recordings from the warehouse. But the most damaging testimony came from an unexpected source. Andrew Stark, Richard Sullivan, and Cameron Hockley. They testified for 6 days straight. Every crime their parents had ordered. Every business destroyed. Every life ruined. The jury listened with expressions ranging from horror to disgust. Dominic Stark's defense attorney tried to paint his clients as victims of a vindictive billionaire with a grudge. It didn't work. The evidence was too overwhelming, the witnesses too credible. On day 12, during cross-examination of Nathan Hockley, the defense made a fatal mistake. They called Truman to the stand as a hostile witness, trying to prove he'd orchestrated everything as revenge. Mr. Cobb, the defense attorney began, a shark in an expensive suit named Gerald Vance. Isn't it true that you returned to this city with the explicit purpose of destroying my clients? No, Truman said calmly.
No?
You didn't build your entire empire specifically to gain power over the families who wronged you as a child. I built my empire because Brooks Keating gave me an opportunity, and I refused to waste it. That your clients happened to be in debt to me was simply good business sense. I acquired assets that were undervalued. Vance smiled like he'd won something. But you admit you targeted them specifically? I admit I was aware of who they were, yes. And you wanted revenge? Truman paused. The courtroom was silent. At first, he said honestly, yes. I wanted them to feel what I felt. Powerless. Afraid. Broken. But then I learned something.
Oh.
What did you learn? I learned that revenge is empty. That what I really wanted wasn't to destroy them, it was to make sure they couldn't destroy anyone else. There's a difference between revenge and justice, Mr. Vance. Revenge is about making yourself feel better. Justice is about protecting future victims. Very noble, Vance said sarcastically. But isn't it convenient that your justice happens to align perfectly with destroying the people you hate? I don't hate them, Truman said, and realized as he spoke that it was true. I pity them. They had every advantage, money, education, opportunity, and they used it to hurt people. They could have been forces for good. Instead, they chose to be monsters. That's not hate. That's profound sadness for the waste of human potential. Vance wasn't expecting that. He fumbled with his notes. Mr. Cobb, isn't it true that you've personally profited from this entire situation? That your company's value has increased dramatically due to the publicity? It has, Truman agreed. Which is why I've pledged 75% of those profits to victim restitution and charitable foundations supporting the causes Brooks Keating believed in. Another fumble. You expect us to believe you're giving away hundreds of millions of dollars? I don't expect you to believe anything, Truman said. The financial documents are public record. You can verify them yourself. Vance tried a different angle. What about your relationship with Mia Stark? Isn't it true you've been romantically involved with the defendant's daughter? That you used her to gain inside information? Truman's jaw tightened. My relationship with Mia Liddell, she legally changed her name years ago, has nothing to do with this case. Doesn't it? She provided you with stolen documents. She spied on her own father. She provided evidence of crimes, Truman corrected. There's a legal difference between theft and whistleblowing. And she did it at great personal cost because she has integrity, something your clients lack. Your Honor, Vance protested. The witness is being argumentative. The witness is answering your questions, the judge said drily. You opened this door, counselor. Continue. Vance shifted tactics again. Mr. Cobb, you mentioned Brooks Keating multiple times. Isn't it true that Mr. Keating had his own grudge against my clients? That this entire scheme was actually his revenge, and you're just the weapon he created? The courtroom erupted in whispers. The prosecution objected. The judge called for order. But Truman leaned forward, looking directly at Dominic Stark in the defendant's chair. Brooks Keating, he said slowly, was a better man than any of us will ever be. Yes, your clients destroyed his life, killed his family, ruined his business. But he didn't spend his fortune on revenge. He spent it helping people. He worked as a janitor, lived in poverty, and used his remaining resources to invest in kids like me, kids your clients had broken. He gave me tools and taught me how to use them wisely. If that's a scheme, I'm proud to be part of it. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. No further questions, Vance said quietly. The prosecution had redirect. Mr. Cobb, one final question. If you could speak to Brooks Keating now, what would you say? Truman felt his throat tighten. I'd say thank you for believing I was worth saving, for teaching me that power is responsibility, for showing me that broken people can choose to heal instead of hurt. He paused. And I'd tell him I'm trying every day to be the man he thought I could be. The verdict came 2 weeks later. Guilty. On all counts. Dominic Stark, 25 years for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, embezzlement, and racketeering. Nathan Hockley, 20 years on similar charges. Eleanor Sullivan, 18 years, with credit for cooperation on revealing additional crimes. The courtroom erupted in applause. The judge didn't even try to stop it. Outside, on the courthouse steps, Truman faced a wall of cameras and microphones. Mr. Cobb, how do you feel about the verdict? Are you satisfied with the sentences? What's next for you and Cobb Industries? He raised a hand for quiet. Justice was served today. Not just for me, or my father, or Brooks Keating, but for every person who's ever been crushed by people who believed their wealth made them untouchable. This verdict sends a message. No one is above accountability. What about the bullies? Another reporter shouted. Andrew Stark and the others who tormented you. Do you forgive them? Truman found Andrew in the crowd. The young man looked haunted, but there was something else in his expression. Relief, maybe. Or the beginning of peace. Forgiveness isn't simple, Truman said. It's not a switch you flip. But Andrew, Richard, and Cameron made a choice when it mattered most. They chose truth over loyalty to corruption. They chose to be better. That's more than their parents ever did. So am I ready to forgive? Not completely. But am I willing to let them try to earn it? Yes. What about your relationship with Mia Liddell? Mia stepped forward, taking Truman's hand. I'm not my father's daughter anymore. I'm choosing my own path. And I'm grateful to stand beside someone who's shown me that our past doesn't define our future. Are you two getting married?
Mia laughed.
We've been dating for 3 months. Let's not rush things. But she squeezed Truman's hand, and he squeezed back, and there was a promise in that gesture that the cameras caught and the tabloids would dissect for weeks. Real talk. Do you believe in second chances for bullies who genuinely try to change? This is a tough one. Drop your honest opinion in the comments. I'm really curious what you think. That night, Truman returned to his penthouse alone. Mia had flown to visit her mother, who'd disowned Dominic and filed for divorce the moment the verdict came in, and Clarice was managing the media circus. Truman went to the hidden room, to Brooks's chess set. Except there was something new on the table. An envelope, with his name on it, in Brooks's handwriting. Truman's heart stopped. He opened it with shaking hands. Dear Truman, asterisk if you're reading this, it means Evelyn gave you the inheritance, you passed the test, and you've won. Not just in court, though I hope you did, but in the bigger game. The game of choosing who you want to be. Asterisk. Asterisk, there's one final thing I need to tell you. One final gift I couldn't give you while I was alive because the timing wasn't right. Asterisk. Asterisk, your father didn't just discover fraud. He and I were working together to expose it. We'd rebuilt our friendship in the years before his death, secretly, because we knew Stark and his partners were dangerous. Richard was gathering evidence, and I was providing the financial backing for a lawsuit that would have destroyed them. Asterisk. Asterisk, when they killed him, I went underground. Became the janitor, the nobody. But I never stopped investigating. For 15 years, I gathered evidence. Bank records. Witness testimonies. Everything. I have safe deposit boxes across the country filled with documentation of their crimes. Not just the murder, but decades of fraud. Asterisk. Asterisk, the key to the main box is in this envelope. Box 347 at First National Bank, under the name Robert Fisher. Evelyn has the authorization paperwork. Asterisk. Asterisk, I'm giving you this for 2 reasons. First, because you might need it if the trial doesn't go your way. Though knowing you, it will. Second, because your father died gathering this evidence. It should be his son who finishes the job. Asterisk. Asterisk, there's one more thing in that safe deposit box. Your father left you a letter. He wrote it 2 days before he died, sensing something was wrong. I've kept it safe all these years, waiting for you to be strong enough to read it. Asterisk. You're strong enough now. Asterisk. I'm proud of you, Truman. Your father would be too. Asterisk. Asterisk. Finish the chess game. White mates in 3. Asterisk. Brooks. Truman looked at the chessboard. At the position he'd left weeks ago. White mates in 3. He studied it, and suddenly he saw it. The combination. The perfect sequence that led to inevitable victory. He made the moves, one after another, and the final checkmate was beautiful in its simplicity. Brooks had left him one final lesson. Sometimes the winning move looks like a sacrifice. But trust the position. Trust the plan. Trust yourself. The next morning, Truman went to First National Bank. The safe deposit box was exactly where Brooks said it would be. Inside, dozens of folders, meticulously organized. Decades of crimes, documented and cross-referenced. More than enough to pursue additional charges. To make sure Dominic and his partners never saw freedom again. And at the bottom, a sealed envelope. Asterisk. To my son, Truman. To be opened after my death. Asterisk. Truman took it to a private room the bank provided. Sat down. Opened it with careful fingers. Dear Truman. Asterisk. If you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I won't see you grow up, graduate, find love, build a life. I'm sorry I'm leaving you and your mother alone. Asterisk. Asterisk. But I need you to know, what I'm doing, the stand I'm taking against these corrupt men, I'm doing it for you. So you grow up in a world where truth matters. Where justice exists. Where good men don't have to bow to evil ones. Asterisk. Asterisk. I know things will be hard. Money will be tight. Kids might be cruel. Life might seem unfair. But you come from strong stock, son. Your mother is the strongest person I know, and you have her strength in you. You also have my stubborn belief that right is right, no matter the cost. Asterisk. Asterisk. Don't let them break you. Don't let anyone convince you that you're worth less because you have less. Your worth is in your character, your integrity, your capacity to love and be loved. Asterisk. Asterisk. If I could give you one piece of advice to carry through your life, it's this: power is a test. When you have it, and I believe you will, you'll be tempted to use it for revenge, for pride, for all the wrong reasons. Don't. Use it to protect people who can't protect themselves. Use it to build, not destroy. Use it to be the man I'm trying to be. Asterisk. Asterisk. I love you, son. More than you'll ever know. And wherever I am, I'm proud of you. Asterisk. Dad. Truman read it 3 times, tears streaming down his face. His father had known. Had faced death with courage. Had thought of his son in his final days. And Truman had spent 15 years believing he was avenging a man who died by accident, never knowing his father had been a hero. He pulled out his phone, called Mia. "Hey," she answered. "Everything okay? You sound—" "I need you to come back," Truman said. I just need you. I'm on my way." 6 months later, the Richard Cobb Foundation officially opened its doors in the building where Truman's father had once worked. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Truman stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Mia beside him, Clarice managing the event with her typical precision. The crowd included dozens of families who'd been victimized by corrupt corporations, whistleblowers who'd lost everything for telling the truth, and children who'd been bullied and broken but who'd found help through the Foundation's programs. Andrew Stark was there, working as a counselor for at-risk youth. He'd sold his inheritance, what little the courts hadn't seized, and donated it to anti-bullying organizations. He looked thinner, older, but there was a peace in his eyes that hadn't been there during the trial. Richard Sullivan ran the Foundation's legal aid clinic, helping people navigate the system that had once protected his family's crimes. Cameron Hockley had started a documentary project, interviewing victims of corporate corruption, giving them a voice they'd never had. They were trying. It didn't erase what they'd done, but it was something. Evelyn Cale stood near the front, beaming. She'd helped structure the foundation, ensured it would operate in perpetuity, protecting Brooks's legacy and Richard Cobb's memory. Truman stepped to the microphone. My father believed that one person standing up for what's right could change the world, he said. He died proving it. Brooks Keating believed that broken people could choose to heal instead of hurt. He spent his life proving it. Today, we honor them both by promising to continue their work. He gestured to the building behind him. This foundation will investigate corruption, protect whistleblowers, support families torn apart by corporate crime, provide resources for children facing bullying and abuse. We're going to make sure that what happened to my family, to Brooks's family, to the hundreds of families destroyed by the Stark-Hockley-Sullivan machine, we're going to make sure it never happens again. The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, Truman found himself alone in his father's old office. The foundation had recreated it from photos, down to the chest set his father had kept on the desk. He'd be proud of you. Truman turned. An older woman stood in the doorway, someone he didn't recognize. I'm sorry, do I know you? No, but I knew your father. She stepped into the room, and Truman could see tears in her eyes. My name is Patricia Woltz. Richard saved my family's business 30 years ago. He found accounting errors that would have ruined us, refused payment for fixing them, and never asked for anything in return. When I heard what Stark did to him, what he did to you, I wanted to help, but I didn't know how. She handed him an envelope. This is a donation. For the foundation. It's not much, but... Truman opened it. A check for $50,000. This is more than generous, he said. It's not enough. It'll never be enough to make up for what you lost. But I want you to know, your father was a good man. The best man I ever knew. And you're just like him. She left before Truman could respond, but her words stayed with him. That evening, Truman took Mia to the cemetery. They stood in front of two headstones. One old, weathered, Richard Cobb, beloved husband and father. One newer, Brooks Keating, friend, mentor, hero. Truman had moved Brooks's grave here, next to his father's. It felt right. I did it, Truman said to the stones. I finished what you started. The foundation is open. The corrupt are in prison. The truth is out there. He paused. I hope I made you proud. Mia squeezed his hand. They are proud. I know they are. Truman pulled out the chess piece he'd been carrying for months, the White King from Brooks's set. He placed it on Brooks's headstone. The king is the piece worth protecting, he said, because he's the one the game is about. You taught me that. You made me worth protecting when I thought I was worthless. Thank you. They stood in silence as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. What now? Mia asked finally. Now we live, Truman said. We run the foundation. We help people. We build something good from all this pain. And us. There was vulnerability in her voice. Where do we go from here? Truman turned to face her. I've been thinking about that. About how insane it is that we're together. About how your father killed mine, how my quest for justice destroyed your family, how every odd was against this working. Mia's expression faltered. And I don't care. Truman took her hands. Brooks taught me that we choose who we become. Our past doesn't define us. Our choices do. And I choose you. Every day. If you'll have me. That sounds dangerously close to a proposal, Mia said, but she was smiling through tears. It's not. Not yet. Truman smiled back. When I propose, you'll know. It'll be big and ridiculous, and probably involve some overly elaborate gesture that Clarice will mock me for. I can't wait, Mia said and kissed him. 1 year later. The Richard Cobb Foundation had helped 300 families pursue justice against corrupt corporations. 27 executives were under investigation based on evidence the foundation had uncovered. 500 children had received counseling and support through the anti-bullying programs. Cobb Industries had doubled in value, and Truman had kept his promise. 75% of profits went to charitable causes. Andrew, Richard, and Cameron had continued their redemption work. They'd never be friends with Truman, but they'd earned his respect. That was enough. Dominic Stark, Nathan Hockley, and Eleanor Sullivan were serving their sentences. Appeals had been denied. Additional charges were pending based on the evidence Brooks had gathered. Justice, it turned out, was slow but thorough. Truman stood in the hidden room of his penthouse, the recreation of Brooks's apartment, looking at the chess set. The game was finished now, White victorious, but he kept it exactly as Brooks had left it. His phone buzzed. Mia, meet me on the roof. I have a surprise, Truman smiled and headed up. The rooftop garden was lit with string lights, and Mia stood in the center, wearing a sundress and a nervous smile. What's this? Truman asked. You said when you proposed, it would be big and ridiculous, Mia said. But what if I beat you to it? She pulled out a small box. Truman's heart stopped. Truman Cobb, Mia said, you're the most infuriating, stubborn, brilliant man I've ever met. You took your pain and turned it into purpose. You chose justice over revenge. You chose to heal instead of hurt. And somewhere along the way, I fell completely, irrevocably in love with you. She opened the box. Inside was a simple band, nothing flashy, just elegant and perfect. I know this is backwards. I know you probably had plans. But I've spent my whole life letting other people make my choices. This time, I'm choosing. So, will you marry me? Truman laughed, a sound of pure joy. You're stealing my moment. Is that a yes? That's a hold on. Truman pulled out his own box from his pocket. Because I was literally about to propose to you. Mia's eyes widened. You're kidding. Great minds. Truman opened his box, revealing a ring with a small diamond. Mia Liddell, you're the bravest, most compassionate person I know. You stood up to your family when it would have been easier to walk away. You chose truth when it cost you everything. You showed me that love isn't about perfect circumstances, it's about perfect choices. Will you marry me? They stared at each other, both holding rings, both laughing. This is ridiculous, Mia said. It's perfect, Truman countered. Yes, they said simultaneously. They exchanged rings, and when they kissed, the city lights sparkled around them like stars celebrating their victory. Okay, I need to know, who should have proposed? Did Mia do the right thing, or should Truman have gone first? Drop your take in the comments. And hey, if this ending gave you feelings, make sure you're subscribed so you can catch the next story. There are so many more to tell. The wedding was small, intimate, just the people who mattered. Clarice served as Truman's best woman, surprising no one. Andrew, Richard, and Cameron attended as guests, not in the wedding party, but present. A statement that redemption was possible, if not complete. Evelyn officiated, having gotten ordained specifically for the occasion. The ceremony was held at the foundation, in the garden they'd planted in honor of Richard Cobb and Brooks Keating. White roses, Richard's favorite. Chess piece decorations, Brooks's passion. When Evelyn asked if anyone objected, Clarice joked, I object to how long it took them to get here, and everyone laughed. Truman's vows were simple. You taught me that I'm not defined by what was done to me, but by what I choose to do next. I choose you, today and every day. Mia's vows were tearful. You taught me that running from my past doesn't heal it, standing up to it does. I choose to stand with you. Forever. They kissed as husband and wife, and the small crowd erupted in applause. At the reception, Andrew approached Truman. I know I'm probably the last person you want to talk to today, he said, but I wanted to give you this. He handed Truman an envelope. Inside was a check, made out to the Richard Cobb Foundation, for $100,000. Andrew, this is. My trust fund finally cleared probate, Andrew said. After legal fees and restitution payments, this is what's left. I want it to go to something good. Something that would have protected you from people like me." Truman looked at the young man who'd once been his tormentor, who'd spent a year in therapy, working with the children he used to resemble, who'd chosen, every single day,